Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Art of the Feminine podcast today. It's Friday, September 14th. Wow, we're already halfway through September. It's hard to believe, but it feels good. Um, it feels like a really good time. And we are here to talk about the Venus retrograde. Yeah, and we're going to talk about Scorpio for sure. We're going to talk a lot about Scorpio. We're going to talk a lot about both Scorpio and Libra. And so, it just what could be better than talking about Venus right now? It just seems like the perfect time. And she's taking her retrograde. A couple videos ago, there were 7 planets retrograde, and now many of those planets are direct. We will have Pluto at the end of the month, but now it's Venus's turn, and Uranus is also retrograde, and they're opposing each other. So we'll talk about that. So I want to say that I just within the past hour sent out the newsletter. It's called Healing the Emotional Body, and it's the Art of the Feminine Akashic Insight newsletter that I try to do every month, but it doesn't always happen. It's sometimes every other month, sometimes every couple months. That newsletter and that article is really, really connected to what we'll be talking about today. And so I've linked it in the description box. So underneath the video, where there's a little bit of writing, if you just click see more, there's a link to that newsletter. You can also always find it on the Art of the Feminine Facebook page, but that um, the emotional body is very, very big, and it has to do with Venus, and it has to do with our feeling centers and our intuition. I talked a lot about intuition in that newsletter, and it's taken me quite a while to get that one out. So I wanted to let you know it's out. Um, Also, in the newsletter is all the information about the mentoring that I mentioned in the last video, and I might talk about it at the end, but it has it's September up through the end of September. I'm accepting new applicants, and there's an early bird price for next week. So check it out in the newsletter if you're interested in doing that program with me. It starts anytime through September and October. And so this is all good news. Also, yes, I want to tell you, I don't always say this, but please, if you like these videos and if you enjoy them, if they're helpful or valuable to you, please leave me comments or like the video, subscribe to the channel, or share the video. And that just helps to keep the activity alive on this platform, and it really lets me know that you're interested in it, because I really bring my heart to these. I love doing them, and I would love to hear from you. So all that being said, let's look at this Venus retrograde and let's let it take us where it wants to go. I'm going to do a little bit of streaming today, like I always do, but we're going to just sort of let Venus is all about art, creativity, and the creative process, the creative imagination. And so, with my background, primarily as an actor, I have a dance background as well, but I had a very powerful practice that I used when I would create, where I would go in these black box studios, at the first university that I trained at, and then later on in other theater spaces where everything's black and it's like a womb. And I remember going in there whenever I was going to create anything original, an original piece, or even to rehearse. Going into that space completely empty, without any concept of what you're going to do, and just allowing yourself to move through the space, feel the space, and receive what it is that's meant to arise from that platform, the foundation of the subconscious mind, is such a powerful, powerful creative space. And it's a space I've always used, and I use it in everything I do. It's not always linear, and it has a rhythm. It can pulse really fast, it can go really slow. It can become a little chaotic. It could feel like discord for a moment, but then come back into harmony and organization. And it's part of the way our thinking process works. It's also part of the way we feel and we receive through our feeling centers. Many people in this human race are cut off from the true power of feeling. And Venus, she rules emotions and she rules feeling. She also rules intuition. We'll get into some of those archetypal connections as we go. She's a profound archetype. She really is the archetype of this era. And there's many other ways we can talk about Venus. So, but today we're using Venus because Venus as a planetary body is going to be retrograde from October 5th. She will start at 10 degrees Scorpio and she'll retrograde back into Libra where she will go back. Oh, yay. Good to see you. And so she'll retrograde back into Libra at 25 degrees. So I titled the video Power, Justice, and Emotional Rebirth. Power in Scorpio, obviously, and power that can also mean sexuality, wealth, all things surrounding power, creative abilities. Scorpio is a powerful, powerful sign. You mentioned we're going to talk about Scorpio and Libra, the sign of symmetry and harmony and beauty and the intellectual artist and it's really the artist, the scales balance. So it shows that art is really what brings us into justice. Justice is an art. It's not a punishment. We right now, people are screaming for justice on the planet. Well, justice is something we have to create. As artists, we get to create justice by balance, beauty, harmony, and symmetry that we create in our own lives and that we birth into the world. We are smarter than this entire program. I know it can be frustrating at times. There's a lot going on right now. These are times can be considered very heavy. Trust me, I know all about it. My work dives into realms that I don't even talk about on this platform, but it's very intense time right now in the outer world. And the newsletter I wrote about talks a lot about the outer inner world. We can be governed, we said this last video, by the outer world and programmed by all these subliminal things and some not subliminal that are coming towards us, or we can connect with our own intuition and access that portal of the pure divine artist within us, and we create the reality. Too much focus on the bad guys or what's happening on the outer, believe it or not, disconnects us from a very particular space that we need to access. And I think in the newsletter I wrote about 0 point, but neutrality, where we go in and it's like going into that black box theater. We go in and we let the creative forces, the elements and the ethers rise up from within us, and then we project them out through our heart, through our word, through our eyes, through our fingertips, through everything we do. Life is so much more fulfilling to live from that place than to be programmed. Now, when we're programmed, we think we're enjoying it, and I have some good examples we'll talk about. But eventually we feel used, or we crash because we realize that we're being consumed by all these sparkly things that are nothing but empty shells. When we're operating on that level, we're not touching the depths of the power of the feeling force, which is really Venus. So let's see, what do I want to say here? So what we're going to do, I'm going to look at a few of the just the sort of logistics of this retrograde, what's happening, and then we'll go into we'll talk about Venus as the triple goddess of money. We'll use the cliche money, love, and beauty. Money, love, and beauty. So we think of Venus now. Those different categories have many, many layers. When we think of money, we're talking about wealth or any kind of energetic exchange. So whatever brings us pleasure, comfort, whatever we barter with, whatever we create, that is a source of supply for us is Venus. Form is Venus. So that's why we can get into materialism and too much obsession with form, but that's wealth. That's our money category. Love. Venus as love. Nice. Venus as love is so Mars, and she's squaring Mars right now today. Mars is in, I believe, in Aquarius right now, and they're squaring each other. But Venus rules desire. And so it's a little bit different than the sex force. Mars is the desire force as we it's the act itself. It's the physical fire that wants to merge and create actual, it's the kind of almost like the aggressive sex act. It's the charging towards. Venus is the magnetic. It's the drawing towards by yearning and desire and feeling. So it's in the category of romance. When we think of Venus, we think of love, we think of romance, we think of partnership, and Venus rules Libra. Libra is the sign of marriage. It's also the sign of art, beauty, harmony, balance, justice. And so it shows us that anything we merge with and marry will become a source of balancing for us. It will become a source of justice for us. We'll have to do polarity integration, and that is what Venus does. I'm seeing if I move too much, it gets a little blurry, so I'll try to stay still. Um, so okay, so Venus, so love. Let's see what else. For love, love is also creativity. It's what we birth. It's the mother. So Venus obviously is connected to the Empress and the mother archetype. And Venus births, she generates. She generates our children. She is the great birther, the great creatrix. The she represents that feminine power within all of us to give birth. So we're going to tie this all into what Venus retrograde means, because when she retrogrades, very powerful for humanity. It's one of the most powerful retrogrades because we have to feel. During a Venus retrograde, sometimes the moon, the lunar forces are a little kind of about sensitivity and boundaries and being open. It's a water quality. Venus also has a lot of water. When you look at her placement on the tree of life, but Venus is how we recognize feeling in our relationships and all things that we're merging with. We have to become conscious of our relationships, our relationship to what we create, how we use our power to generate, how we are showing up in our relationships with that balance and harmony of Libra. It makes us tune into children and that inner child, that inner creative ability of our own inner child, because Venus is, we'll talk about some of the numbers and archetypes she's connected to, and that gives it away. It lets us know. Um, all right. So love and then beauty. And beauty, there's so much to say about beauty. I have so many different things I could talk about today, and I have lots of examples, and I'm hoping that the right ones come in at the right time, because beauty and our perception of beauty on this planet and how we deal with physical form is one of the greatest lessons that we have to learn here on planet Earth. We are in an inverted dimension. In this dimension, beauty, the most tantalizing, seductive, and intoxicating beauty, can be a veil for something underneath that has no conscious, that literally has not come into the consciousness of the heart. And so beauty in this world is very we have to navigate it to understand it. We always, as creatures, divine creatures, we always appreciate beauty. We can't turn our we can't turn away from beauty. In fact, I have a good example. I did some work in the fashion industry when I was in New York City for a while, and I worked a really inside it and got to see the power of physical beauty. It is awesome. Like the power of physical form to bring um to bring us to our knees is just absolutely undeniable. It's very real. But how do we reconcile in this year, in this year, yes, this year as well, how do we reconcile the disparity between beauty and depth and power and wisdom? That's a little bit, we'll touch on that. It's a huge topic. A lot of the work I do is around that. So search the Art of the Feminine page, and I've done a lot of writing about it. So, beauty, let's see, what else do we want to say about beauty? How do we create beauty? How do we feel ourselves as beautiful? How do we know through self acceptance that we are each beautiful? It doesn't matter. In this world, we go through a trajectory. We start out young and innocent and aglow with our fresh cells and our new we start waxing. And we go through all the different stages, the arc of the triple goddess. We go through the maiden, the mother, and the crone. All nature goes through that in this dimension. This is changing. That process is changing. And as we ascend, we won't have to go through the tragedy. And I'm only making a joke, but the tragedy of having the outer form become rejected by society. But that is the truth. And that is a true sorrow that we have to address in this world, that the soul getting richer, wiser, more awake, more perceptive, more powerful. Sometimes the very soul that is unfolding that is at the same time. That is until you reach a certain point where the light where the presence takes you over and emanates through you, regardless of how you look on your trajectory in physical form. But it is true, and this is very much a part of the feminine journey that women face. Men face it too, but it's considered the feminine journey in all of us, that as we age, some of our outer attractive magnetic force that is in that fashion industry that I'm talking about changes. And in some cases, it pushes people away, or we no longer have the magnetic quality that calls in a lot of that kind of attention. But the truth is that where that when that intention is coming from has a frequency as well. And so the beautiful part about when that begins to be stripped away is that we start to see through the program. And so that is why there's many, many wise people in their older years that laugh at everything. You can talk to someone with wisdom, and when you're doing your thing and getting into this or that or popular culture and fashion and beauty and all this stuff, they just look at you with quiet eyes, knowing that that is a process we go through. But when we get past it, what we know about the particular frequency in this world gives us liberation. We understand it. And this is really cool. I want to say this. We you see, there's higher dimensions of our being. And so as we age in this world, if we attain true wisdom, if we attain true wisdom and show up for our lessons, if we master love, which is Venus, our form in the astral world becomes the pearl of our journey. And we're creating our eternal, infinite, youthful, always radiant, never dying physical form that we will eventually draw into this reality. That form is first created in the astral. And this is all in the wisdom that, but we have to show up for our lessons. If we don't gain that wisdom, our astral body is decrepit. It is as feeble as our most broken down body in 3D. And so that's going out there, but this is how it works. So if you're interested in that kind of knowledge, so we have beauty, we have love, we have money. These are the things that are affected with Venus. So Venus right now, let's look at, she's in Scorpio. When Venus is in Scorpio, I think she takes on that underworld journey. So I want to say also that everyone, a lot of us know about the Venus transits. They become very popular um, in the past few years. A lot of people and astrologers are doing work with the Venus transits. It's wonderful. They've always been a part of the ancient wisdom and the ancient mysteries, and I've been working with them at Art of the Feminine for years and years and years. But they're coming into our collective consciousness that Venus makes these transits. We won't go, she becomes the morning star, the evening star. She goes on his journey. We won't go into the details in this video. I talk about it in some other videos, and we'll do more on it in future videos. But it's important to point out that these transits are connected to the five-pointed star, which is the pentagram. So she is therefore connected to the archetype of the pentagram as well as the number 5. And we'll talk about some of the correspondences there over an 8-year period. So she's very connected to the number 8, and 8 in we know is the archetype of Leo, and also Scorpio is the 8th house. There's all kinds of correspondences here that let us know what the heck she's doing, why she's doing this, and why this is so connected to our journey right now. We can know all the intellectual information in the world. We can study the mysteries. We can know the hidden knowledge. But what Venus is telling us is that ultimately, wisdom is your living being, and you embody this wisdom through your journey. You become the living, breathing work of art. Venus rules art. The true art, the true alchemy, and is our being. It's what we make of our own life and our own consciousness, because our consciousness is indeed our God self. It is we each have our individual ray of the whole universal consciousness. Venus shows us that we have to feel to get there. And in the end, it's not going to be about what you know. You have to know yourself. Through that knowledge, you will become a fountain of everything that you need to know. The problem is, and there's a slight problem, that in our world, just about everything is done to distract us from that journey. And I wrote about this in Healing the Emotional Body. Everything is noisy, everything is loud. It's also very creative. And so this isn't about judgment, but I want to say that I'm looking at Venus right now on my wall. It's so amazing. So rising, Aphrodite rising. So which represents her rising from our subconscious mind. It represents the birth of her, and it represents the birth of true higher understanding. It's sacred union. It's sacred union with our inner wisdom, our inner teacher, which is the number 5 rules the 5th house, Leo. So we know Leo is already there because it's 8. 8 is Leo. Um, And Leo is also the 5th house. So we have 8 and 5 there in Leo. And she's also connected to Taurus. Venus rules Libra and Taurus. So, in which she's opposite Taurus in Scorpio. And that's really exciting because Uranus is in Taurus right now. Venus in Scorpio. They are opposing each other. Uranus rules Aquarius. Mars is in Aquarius, squaring both Venus um, and Uranus. So this is this T square that we talked about last video. We'll touch on it. So here, okay, and so where was I going with that? So Venus in Scorpio, oh, in Taurus. In Taurus, Venus is about wealth. She's about creating material wealth. And the number 5 rules the elements, and the elements are the 5 ethers, the 5 elements. It's what we create with and what we command with our feeling center. So this is all very, very deep, very, very beautiful. I could go on and on and on and on, but let me see if there's anything else I want to say. So it's interesting in this T square. That's where she's at right now. We'll start with the T square and then we'll go into some other things. Jupiter is in Scorpio right now too. And so where she's starting, Scorpio tells a lot about what this retrograde is about. Scorpio is Scorpio is when Venus is in Scorpio, she takes on the underworld themes. When Venus is in Scorpio, she becomes more, I feel she takes on a lot of Neptune energy. And remember, Neptune rules Pisces. So Neptune is connected to that depth of the subconscious and the underbelly, both the light and dark side. When Venus goes in, because she's desire, and desire links us straight down with those things. When Venus is in Scorpio, she's going to take on some qualities of Neptune. So that could be escapism. It could also be addiction. It could also be misuse of desire. Art that is meant to trigger things that are negative, which we see all over in our world. It's all over. Art is so powerful. Art, I'll say that in the microphone. Art is so powerful. You need to know that, because we create our reality. This reality isn't being projected on us unless we let it be. We have to know the dance between the inner and outer, but we have to get in touch with that part of ourselves. So that's Venus in Taurus, Venus in Libra, marriage. union, harmony. We already talked about more of the intellectual artist in Taurus. She's a performing artist, the singer, the actor, even in Leo. But also that earthy, she rules the throat chakra. And um, so these 3 planets that are in this T-square, Mars is it's interesting, Mars, which is the ancient ruler of Scorpio, is in Aquarius. They're all in each other's signs. Uranus, which is the ruler of Aquarius, is in Taurus. Venus, the ruler of Taurus, is in Scorpio. Did I say Mars? Mars is the ancient ruler of Scorpio. I'm not sure I said that. So Mars is the ancient ruler. They're all 3 in each other's signs. Uranus from Aquarius in Taurus, Venus from Taurus in Scorpio, Mars from Scorpio in Aquarius. So that's happening right now. That's big too, because that T square is happening through this retrograde. So that means that action is on. It's really, really on. I can feel it right now. I mean, in fact, I feel I can always, I'm really connected to Venus. The whole Art of the Feminine platform is built on Venus, the Empress, the whole feeling force, all the feminine wisdom. That's what Art of the Feminine, that's what my work is built on. And I'm ruled by Venus. I'm born on Friday. I'm ruled by Venus. I'm a Taurus. I'm in everything. So I feel Venus so strongly. And the emotional body was also, which is part of our collective, was a big part of my journey of healing and understanding what that role plays. So I was one of the people who could feel too much instead of not enough, and still do. Like right now with Venus under in this T square, I feel it. I can feel it. And but it's also stimulating and very, very creative. All right, so let's move into this. So new alignments are taking place in the sky. All the things that were all the retrogrades, things are shifting, things are moving. So this is a good time. Saturn direct in Venus is also sextile with Saturn because she's in Scorpio. Yeah, that's powerful. And Saturn is trining Uranus in Taurus. That's powerful. We've got a lot of positive movement on. Capricorn's lit up. Pluto will be going direct. The sign of Capricorn is going to be direct for this Venus retrograde, and because it's October 5th through November 16th. We've got that happening. Jupiter's in Scorpio. Really, really, we've had a lot of revelations about our collective sexuality all across the board over the past year. It's been great. More to come during this what retrograde. But yeah, so the T square, and what was I going to say? All right. Let's talk about some of the Venus archetypes. The Fool. Venus, the Fool is Aleph. All right, so the Venus is opposite Uranus. Uranus is the Fool, and it's Aleph, the Hebrew letter Aleph. It's air, it's the breath. And Venus herself is Dalet. She's the door. And so it shows that our feeling centers really are the door to creation. And I wrote about that in Healing the Emotional Body. How we feel is our power. And so this has to be, it's work that has to be done if we want to wake up. No way around. We can blame until the cows come home. We need to not dissociate. We need to see what has happened and call it out. However, what do we do with that? What do we do with that? All right. Yeah. Avoid escapism. That's a good idea. Um, what do we do with it? So, this is where we're going to go. We're going to talk a little bit about social media, romantic love. Let's talk about Venus. Let's talk more about Venus. So, let's talk about Venus as the door. Okay, this is where I want to go. Venus in her shadow is connected to vanity, is connected to narcissism, seduction, materialism, addiction, lust, superficialness, gossip, and like an over sensual kind of using sensuality as a tool to get what you want. So that's some of the shadow. In our world, this is where I want to go now. I want to take some examples in the world, mainstream culture. That's where I want to go. Took so many notes and I have to decide, I have to pick and choose. So we've already talked about the archetypes of Libra and Scorpio, and we will come back to them. But let's take a little look at the world and what we see in the outer world. All right, here we go. Subliminal programming. Dalet. Venus associate. Yes, with Dalet. Oh, yes. Yes, absolutely. And dot. Yes. Thank you. Um, yes, because of, and also because of the throat chakra, she's connected to Dath on the tree of life, very much so, by the power of the word. And so, and by, and many, 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 so much more. We could do a whole video on that. And our karma as well, because Dath rules our karma. It's also the portal into knowledge. So Venus is part of that portal and part of birthing that portal. How do we buy into the beauty in this world? I gave an example. I one of the things I did when I was in New York was I did makeup for a while. I did, because I was an actress, and I did some catalog and some print work and some work in that industry, but not on a high level, not like fashion. And so, but I did work for a while as a makeup artist on photo shoots, and I did some consulting as well. I got to see, there was one time I did a consulting job at Vogue, and I worked as, it was actually a shoot about yoga. And this was, and I was teaching yoga at a pretty high level in New York City at that time. And I was called in as a consultant. And I got to see the power of these beautiful models. I was working with a well-known German photographer who also, it was very interesting, was practicing transcendental meditation. So this is a really cool shoot. We talked, it was really nice. However, still the very powerful experience of beauty was, could not be denied. These girls that were doing this shoot, there was two young women, probably 18, 19, goddesses from their appearance, like 5'10", 5'11", perfect form, just would walk in a room and stop traffic, literally, like that kind of beauty. And so they were dressed up as goddesses and put on this, on the set, and I can't remember what the actual article was about, but it was about yoga, and I was there to make sure that everything was correct and that the postures were correct and everything, which is hilarious when it comes down to it, because once you get this kind of atmosphere, it was definitely not about yoga, but the power of beauty trumps that in a way, and that's kind of my point, that this beauty is so awe-inspiring, and this is what that industry is built on, that it stops everything, and when you're in it, it is so seductive. I mean, and there's very good people in this industry, and I knew a lot of people and have friends in this industry, but seeing how, what kind of power the feminine, and this could be male or female, this happened to be two feminine beings, the kind of power that beauty has, whether it's out in nightclubs, whether it's in any of the social scene in a big city, it is monumental. It's huge, and it has the power to annihilate some of the deeper meaning. It's that powerful. It really is. Now, I could go on and on about that industry because there's all kinds of things. There's all kinds of good that can come out of it. But I just wanted to make that point because that's Venus. That's the power of the feminine. And at a very particular time, that power can really make your juices rise. When you're in the face of that kind of beauty, it arouses sexual energy, it arouses desire, it arouses competition, lust. It can make you have, it can call forth low self-esteem in those people that are comparing themselves to that beauty. What does it do? It brings feelings up. It immediately triggers feelings. Beauty has the power to awaken that force within us, both negative and positive. That being said, um, you have to clarify what you mean by heartbreak. In these girls were great. They truly were, but it really, in the end, wasn't about yoga. It really wasn't. Not the true. And that's part of why I left the sort of the mainstream yoga at that time, because where I was going was a different direction. We'll just put it that way. So, um, We're at a time right now where we can be consumed by it. Oh, and also looking at like the beauty YouTube scene. I love makeup, and I've always it's always kind of been on my radar. I've always followed some of these people before they even became big beauty gurus. I was always interested in these like tutorial videos, and just because I used to do it, and they're fun. They're so creative, and I love the palettes. I love everything to do with color and everything to do with texture, color, changing forms. That's a lot of what you do as an actress. You work with theater and makeup. And so I've always been interested in it. But watching what has happened now over a period of years, watching how some of these people now morph into something that becomes almost a slave of the outer. That's not to say everybody, and I know there's a lot of things happening in the beauty industry right now, and in that world, beauty industry is huge. Makeup industry is one of the biggest in the world right now. It's just grown through the roof. It's huge, and anyone who sees those videos on YouTube knows what I mean. They get millions of views in a day, and so what we're seeing though is that how vanity, materialism, narcissism, and complete disconnect from the depths can become really a caricature of that thing. It can become it also can then arouse the passions of jealousy, competition, rage, and you see it playing out, then it becomes like a soap opera. This is happening everywhere, but beauty is particularly, relevant because of Venus. So, that being said, we'll talk about some mainstream culture right now because I thought this was kind of a good way to look at it. Right now, yeah, it's true, and the power of woman is so beautiful and so divine, and it's I can't say everything, so if I didn't say something and you wanna argue it back, please feel free to. Please leave the comments. I'm sure I would cover it if we had more time, but beauty is it's the number one way that we are under the law of suggestion in this world. And so because it arises the sensual appetites, which is Taurus, and then it arises the power appetites, which is Pluto in Scorpio. So all these themes are on the table right now to be looked at because we're starting in Scorpio at 10 degrees. The wheel of fortune is turning 10 degrees and coming back into 25. 25 is 7, and it's the divine number of the divine feminine. We are going to see power come back into justice and balance and beauty, go back into power and regeneration and rebirth. So I see this retrograde as starting in Scorpio, going through this T square, um, sextiling Saturn, but going back into Libra, regaining balance, authority, justice, symmetry, beauty, revelations about true inner art, and then going back into Scorpio again for rebirth. That's why I titled this video that, because this transit, this retrograde has the power to do that. Now, how we do that, we'll get to that. But I want to say one more thing before before I come to sort of the final statement. So remember, Venus is about feeling. Let's look at the world right now. I just want to talk about this because we'll talk about popular culture. How I'm going to give an example, and there's absolutely no judgment because there never is. We're all in a one big creative process. But if you look at physical influences right now in the world, in the body, what do you think of? What's mainstream culture? What's hip? What's everybody doing? What's everywhere, especially millennials? But you see, I'm not going to make a joke. So what we see is tattoos everywhere, full body tattoos. The more, the better. Wonderful, beautiful, creative, definitely an art form, but this is also popular culture, and this is being beamed to us. And so we see right now tattoos, piercings, and hair color, like hair color, purple, blue, green, yellow, whatever you want, but hair color. So I'm just using this as an example because it's very right now. And I love it. It's so much fun and so creative, but this is the point I want to make. When you're an artist, and I actually thought of Lady Gaga, and I might mention her if I have time to talk about something I realized about just by watching a little bit about her and her interview. She's kind of in the Mainstream right now even more because of her movie coming out, A Star Is Born, which is truly about art and beauty and romance and many, many themes around Venus. A Star Is Born, always been one of my favorite movies. Can't wait to see this remake with her. It looks amazing. Very Venus themes, love, creativity, romance, addiction, self-destruction. All of these things fall under Venus. Good time to see the movie during the Venus retrograde, and I wonder if that was intentional. I think it even comes out the day Venus goes retrograde, which is funny. Um, so this is the point I wanna make about the physical form because Venus rules form in the body. And so what's popular with the body right now, tattoos and whatnot, and these things are very permanent. When you think about tattoos, are very permanent. Um, but it's being beamed to us from the outside, as everything is in um popular culture and hip and trendy kinds of things. It's usually always coming from the outside. Somebody starts it, but usually artists or, people on the street, meaning like the hip street. It's usually people who are really coming into that place from as a creative art form. It's truly being inspired from within. But then what happens is the industries take it, they seek it out, they go around and scout what's happening with the real artists, and then they project it into mainstream culture, and then it becomes huge. And so it's big right now. Again, the reason I talk about it is because it has to do with the body and art combined. And there's very beautiful things happening in that way in self expression. It's about self expression. It also could be seen as a backlash from a more puritanical kind of mentality about the body. But yes, yep, exactly. But this is the thing, because if you're an empath or if you work in this world, you can see you can recognize when someone is wearing it or if they've produced it from within, and that's Wendy, that's exactly what it is. A person who's an artist is creating that from within. They haven't Artists definitely work with they work with, stimulation from, and I can say this in my own work and everything I've done in these creative realms. We have intercourse with the outer world. We don't deny it, but when we really birth our truth, it's from within. And then we navigate it and adjust it and interface with the outer world. What I see though in a lot of young people, and this goes for the drug scene as well, because the drug scene is very Venus-like too, and that's very, very big right now. I talked about it in the last video. A lot of things happened after that video around that, just verifying kind of what we talked about. But when I see young people, old people, um, making certain statements with what they wear or how they present themselves, I can usually feel where it's coming from. I can feel if it was something that was done to kind of fit in or to be a part of it, or just because of programming, meaning like you're told this is cool, you're told to do it, you do it because you're kind of unconscious. That's most of humanity most of the time. Um, but there's a difference. There is definitely a difference. And so that's what I wanna say for this retrograde. Be aware. I'm gonna have to close out really soon because we're getting towards the end. Be aware of it. What I was gonna say about Lady Gaga is, so Lady Gaga is one of these people who wears these images and is very much an image maker. And she talks about, I've recently read a couple things she did or saw her and had never followed her or anything like that, but was interested in her because I immediately, when I connected with it, recognized an artist. If you are an artist, you generally can feel when someone's really an artist. Meaning, if you've come into that power yourself where you know how to create from within, you can appreciate that in another soul. And we're meant to, even if it's something completely different. So, my personal opinion when I was came in contact with her work was that, oh, this is really an artist. She definitely knows how to push everything away. And I'm using her because she's very mainstream culture. She knows how to block everything out and birth it from within. Just like I talked about that black box studio space that I would use to create as an actor, dancer, performer, speaker, all of that. She goes into that space as well. And she talked about it. She also talked about having to really fight to not sell out her creative work because she became very much a part of the machine, the industry, and she's very much in the machine, which is very much part of the program. But there's some of that there, but she is very important to her that she birthed from within, and she did not be like being compared to other artists that came before her or told on certain occasions that she had stolen from them or taken from them. That really, she didn't like it. She talked about being influenced, but her own process. And then you see real talent and real creation. And then you see someone like that can step into acting and really be an actor because their soul is an artist and can create on different platforms like all of us can. But so my point being with those two things is recognize that even in mainstream, we have artists, we all have our own artists at home. Get in touch with yourself. The more authentic you are, the more powerful you are in this world because of the influences we're under right now. The divine feminine energy is not as honored, and that's a fact. I can say that through my work. I know that once you really bust into that real frequency and you start to carry it, all kinds of things happen because it disturbs the balance, and it's going to be that way for a while. We our creativity is here to teach us how to navigate the blocks of the outer world. Social media everywhere. Escape the noise. I talked about this in the newsletter. You have to touch your own silence. If you want to create, if you want to survive this retrograde is meant to um yeah, this this retrograde is meant for us to touch the silence so that we can create. This retrograde is an opportunity for us to touch that inner place within our heart, feel it, and birth our higher feelings. Reject the programming. It's so subliminal, and yet some of it's right in our face, and it's hitting us on all different levels. In our times right now, it has never been more of a reality that the power of beauty, celebrity, all of that has been harnessed. It's working through the law of suggestion, which is Leo. Venus rules Leo. Meaning through her 8-year pentagram cycle, she's connected with Leo. Leo is the Christic force, and they are partners. And so this Venus retrograde is big. It's big for all of us, but it's a time to really reflect. It's coming at a very sacred time. Is there anything else I want to say? Gnosis. That is where we go from there. Oh, I want to finish with some questions. This is it. These are some questions to ask yourself. What are you creating? What are the programs that you detect? You just take a moment, scan your system, scan your field, ask yourself, what program am I running? And get rid of it. Am I authentically connected to my intuition? We didn't talk a lot about intuition. That's in the newsletter, but it's intuition. It's the Hierophant, it's the Taurus archetype. Where have I sold out? We've all sold out somewhere. Find it, bless it, and make a new choice. What do I desire? How does beauty inform me and how I feel about myself? What's my relationship to beauty? How do I sell out my soul through lust? But, life is more than sexual experiences and lust. Life is about a long-term understanding of a heart with another person. That is Libra. Libra rules marriage. We could go on and on about marriage, but the true arc of power in this dimension comes in through that long-term commitment, going through the arc of physical beauty, because we all change, but understanding the heart. Very few people are choosing to understand that right now. It will change, but something is lost when we throw that out. And that's it. How have I been led astray by these things? And then just see it and make a new decision to create something else. So I want to say, just a reminder, I'm going to close out. If you really like this work, and there's so much more, I have 5 different courses I teach, and you would like to mentor with me up through October, I'm accepting applicants and would love to meet you and work with you. If you want to ask some questions, we can make an appointment to talk, but I want to say that because it's coming up. The details are in the newsletter, and it's a 3-month program where we work with the divine feminine wisdom. Venus retrograde will be a potent time to work with the divine feminine wisdom. I can assure you that. I know that. It's going to be really big. That being said, I want to wish everyone a really beautiful week. Next week we'll be doing Aries full moon. I think it's the harvest moon and the equinox. And so until next week, many, many blessings. Leave comments, like the video, share it if you feel guided to, if it's right for you, and I will see you next time.